Welcome to YangZhou! Stop. In the name of love. Alright, YangZhou, this is gonna be an amazing place for a great cultural experience, a culinary experience, and all-round very interesting location here in China. First time visiting to YangZhou, and there is so many amazing places to go here, and this has instantly become one of my highly recommended places to visit when coming here to China. But let's get straight into it. One of the best things, the most popular things to do here in YangZhou will be Slender Lake or Slender West Lake. It's a very beautiful park, well designed. It's covering some of the lakes, which I think the lakes around this whole area is what makes YangZhou so important, but especially ancient China, where it's a great path for lakes crossing to be able to get all around China. They got a very famous bridge here, ShouXi Bridge, which this one is clearly had work either done to it or remade, but this is like normal for buildings. You know, old buildings tend to fall down after a while, so you do kind of need to rebuild them. But I'm pretty sure they've kept the architectural style the same as the bridge is very gorgeous. It's one of the most iconic places here in YangZhou. But then just all around Slender Lake, there are beautiful places to check out. The south part of Slender Lake is more of the historical part to it with the bridge. And then there's sort of like the northern part. Now you can get from either side of Slender Lake on sort of the buses inside. And then the northern part is just like a very beautiful park. They've got a whole array of different things to see there, from beautiful flowers to well-designed miniature sculptures to some waterfalls, some rock formations. And Slender Lake, even though we went there on a weekend, so it should be an incredibly busy time, and the south part was around the bridge. However, the northern part was quite clear. It's a very large location, so even though it can be a very busy place, you can easily find parts that are secluded and you can sit down, chill, you can have picnics there, you can walk around without worrying too much about always bumping into people. It's just mostly at the bridge that it's going to be super crowded. Very close to Slender Lake is Daming Temple. Now we didn't have enough time to go to this location, but we did see it quite often in Slender Lake, as it's a very big pagoda, so you will be able to view it whilst you're there in Slender Lake. But if you do want to go there, I'm sure it's another great location to visit. And I highly recommend a visit to Dongguan Street, an ancient street that I also walked down during the early hours of the morning, which you guys can see that video to see what it looks like when there's no one around. Obviously in the evening, it's a very popular place to go and eat, to try some local food, and there's a lot of local restaurants there to try the famous cuisine from YangZhou. The architecture around the area is very interesting. Like I said, I'm sure some of it has been redone, but some of it still looks very old. The street is very compact, so you do get this feeling of what it's like to walk around in ancient China, because we're never going to be able to walk around in ancient China. So it's sort of like old streets like this is our best opportunity to kind of feel what it would have been like if we were around in that time. There's plenty of other things to do there that seems to be quite traditional. Felicity done a fan making there. There were several shops where you can kind of like design a flag. It was very cool. The lady who helped Felicity was deaf, and this was her own personal shop, and she just kind of like walked Felicity through it as we got this very cool design, and I was quite surprised at just how cool it sort of came out. On Dongguan Street, you do have a very famous garden as well. There is also Yuan Garden, but we didn't quite have time to go in there, so I can't really talk too much about that, but it is on the street, and it seems like the perfect time to go and visit this garden is when you're exploring the street. But we went to Dongguan Street during the evening, and obviously the garden was closing around 9:30, so we didn't really have time to go in there, and we was only here for the weekend, and there's a lot of things to do here, so we didn't actually have time to explore Yuan. but I'm sure it's beautiful inside. But Dongguan isn't the only famous street here in YangZhou. There's also PiShi Street, which is a little bit more modern, a little bit more vibrant, and it looks like a few more things happened there. We did notice that it seemed like there were maybe a few more drinking places, style drinking places there. However, we didn't exactly find a bar, but there was a lot more sort of like modern restaurants there. So there was also some Western restaurants there as well. There was a lot of, just say, like bubble tea places. And again, the street is also just filled with culturally interesting stuff. Again, it does have some interesting architectural designs, as well as having a lot of local food as well, as well as being able to get sort of like traditional dress styles. Out of the two, I personally preferred PiShi Street, as it seemed like it had a little bit more life to it, and it does have the history. However, Dongguan is probably the more famous historically, and just beyond PiShi Street is the Ho family garden. Not the Ho family garden? Apple Maps says it's the Ho family garden. Apparently it's the Hua Yuan. It's not the Ho family. But we entered this not Ho family garden. Quite expensive for the experience you get. Now it's a beautiful location. You could imagine the people from ancient China who lived here, who built it, must have been very rich. It's a very beautiful place, very nice design, but it's a very small location. You really wouldn't spend that much longer than an hour inside. And for that short experience, it came to 96 Yuan for both of us. And there were lots of whilst we were there were wedding photos being taken. So it is definitely a great place to take photos. And I can imagine those wedding photos came out pretty well, especially with sort of the background. But considering it's quite small and you really don't spend that much time inside, I did think the price was a little bit expensive, but it doesn't mean that it's not a beautiful location and it's not worth seeing. It was definitely a very cool, interesting place. And sometimes it's cool to see how, I guess, the rich people in ancient time lived, as it's now basically a museum. Now, right outside our hotel was the SiWang Pavilion. It's not exactly like an amazing landmark, but it is quite central. It's I think it's the central part of YangZhou. Again, I wouldn't go out of my way to see this, but if you're kind of in the area, it's worth just taking a small visit to just see the pavilion, walk around it, maybe take a photo of it, and move on to Dongguan Street, as they're very close together. But there are so many more things here in YangZhou. We didn't have enough time to visit everything. One of the reasons why it's such a cultural experience is because they have their own sort of unique culture, and it's called the Three Knives culture. The Three Knives include the culinary experience, sort of like a pedicure or foot massage. A lot of people, it's very famous now for like foot massage. So when people go to YangZhou, they always get the traditional foot massage there. But it is also the part of, that's the knife, the Three Knives, is for the sort of like the pedicure. They would sort of like trim your toenails. Now we did go for the foot massage. I didn't really get much film in there because I wasn't trying to make a foot OF. So I was just trying to keep this without showing my feet too much. And the third knife is, I guess it's slightly different for men and women. The third knife for guys would be a shave. Girls, it's more like the beautician part for the haircut. So these are the three knives of YangZhou: food, trimming your toenails, and cutting your hair or beard. And this is still available there to see, and there are also statues around which show off the Three Knives culture, and you can experience whichever part you want. You're obviously going to get the food, and if you want to go for a foot massage and get a haircut there, that's the unique part of the cultural experience of YangZhou. So if you're going to YangZhou and you want I want the traditional local experience or the traditional cultural experience, this is kind of what you're going to get. And food in YangZhou was absolutely delicious. It's sort of blended in with another city. YangZhou mixed with Hui'an is a UNESCO gastronomy city. First time I've even heard of this, and I'm pretty sure the UK should be this as well, with all the fine dining and the fantastic cuisine you can get in the UK. In YangZhou and Hui'an, they've sort of mixed their two names together, Huiyang Thai, Huiyang food. And it is very delicious, definitely worth trying it. One of the things that you're definitely going to want to try if you're coming here to get the best cultural experience you possibly can. Now there's a lot of food, and I'm not even sure we managed to try everything. So I'll give you what we did try, and I enjoyed all of it. The first one's nothing really special. was just fried rice. YangZhou fried rice. I don't know if this is the origin of all fried rice around the world, or all fried rice in China, and then obviously became famous all over the world. However, this was the only one that maybe was a little disappointing. We sort of ate it on Dongguan Street, and I didn't really have the most flavor, but that could have been the restaurant as opposed to, you know, the traditional style. But if you've had fried rice before and you like fried rice, you're going to enjoy fried rice here in YangZhou. Sweet and sour mandarin fish, very delicious. I never really taste too much of the sour whenever I have sweet and sour. I taste much more of the sweet. Maybe that's just my own taste buds. And we've had this dish in several places, and I didn't realize that actually it's part of YangZhou's traditional food. But the sweet and sour fish, sweet and sour mandarin fish is absolutely delicious. The translation from the Chinese doesn't actually perfectly translate into sweet and sour mandarin fish, but that is the English name for it. Now you can get minced crab and minced pork balls. I believe the pork ball is called the lion head. It's a very big meatball that is very delicious. I preferred the pork meatball to the crab meatball, but they were both very nice. The pork one just has slightly more flavor from where the ones we were eating. Shredded tofu with chicken and ham. So tofu is always a dish that kind of like you need to add a lot of other things to it to give it some sort of flavor. The shredded tofu with chicken and ham, obviously the chicken and the ham give it the flavor. And then there's obviously tofu soup. And again, it's the soup that's given the tofu the flavor, I guess. The breakfast here in YangZhou is also very famous, and we were quite lucky that our hotel seemed to be a prime location for breakfast. There was a lot of people not staying in our hotel who would queue up, wait on the first floor before their number was called out, and then they could come up to the restaurant. One of the breakfast foods we did get was the layered cake, which is a little bit sweet and very delicious. They're very famous for the baozi, a stuffed bun, which is very traditional. You'll find these all over China. They're very good. It depends on what they have inside. If you get a meat baozi, then it's nice. You know, meat baozis are my favorite baozis, but you can also just get vegetable baozis as well. And then they also have yao rou, a pork meat, which is kind of like quite sorted. It has sort of like this gelatin sort of like on the top where the fat has kind of become a little bit more like jelly. That I just sort of like take that off, and then I can just eat the meat. And it's quite traditional to have green tea when you're having breakfast. Now the famous green tea in YangZhou and this sort of area is Luyang Chuan. Now I'm a massive green tea fan, as I've been having green tea all over China, finding that there is so much green tea that is grown in loads of different places here in China. Like, we obviously came back from Hangzhou just a few months ago, very much enjoyed the green tea there. More green tea here in YangZhou to try. I'm slowly becoming a green tea channel, or just a general tea channel. I don't want to rank cities, but I would put this above Hangzhou. It's just that Hangzhou has the benefit of being close to Shanghai, so when most people land in Shanghai, they can easily get to Hangzhou. YangZhou is a little bit further away. You'd get a train straight from Shanghai all the way to YangZhou, and it's about 2.5 hour journey. And YangZhou is also very close to Nanjing, not far away from there, and it's also very close to other sort of famous smaller cities around it, as it's a very historical place. Now the best way to get here is by train. Now you can also get flights closer to it, like you can get a flight to Nanjing, and if you're starting your journey in Nanjing, then YangZhou is not too far away. You can either get buses from Nanjing, or you can get buses from other cities around the area. But mostly, I guess you're going to be coming here via train. Now, we didn't try the e-scooters when we was here, but it looks like a fantastic way to get around the city. They've obviously got bicycles you can rent out. Again, we didn't try these, so I don't know if you have to have like a Chinese app and a Chinese bank card to scan and open these. And if you're coming from outside of China, maybe you're not going to be able to rent the local bikes and rent the local e-scooters. The other way to get around the city is, of course, taxis and buses. They do have a bus route, but we were taking cities because we were so short on time. We always took a Didi. There are also local taxis if you don't have access to be able to order a Didi on your phone. And of course, walking. We picked a hotel that was in a fantastic location that was very close to Dongguan Street and close to Slender Lake, so we was able to just walk between them. Now I do have to give a little bit of a shout out to our hotel, Yuan Hotel, which seems to be a really good traditional sort of hotel. Like I said, loads of local people were coming here in the morning on Sunday morning to try and have the breakfast here. So I think the breakfast in Yuan Hotel is very famous. and it's very close to the pavilion as well, so you can easily see that outside the window. Now we did get it for 346 Yuan, which I don't think is that expensive either, especially for a weekend for a very famous city, a very famous historic city in a very good location. But there were cheaper options as well. So accommodation in YangZhou isn't going to cost you too much. It just depends on what is your personal price range, what sort of luxury you want. But there were great hotels in fantastic locations that are close to Dongguan Street and close to Slender Lake, or they can be a little bit further away. And the prices are all sort of around 200 to 300, between say 200 to 400 Yuan. Now there are some absolutely stunning hotels very close to Slender Lake that have like hot springs inside. On a weekday, you could probably get this for like 600 to 700, but we did see on the weekend, this absolutely fantastic resort was over 1,000 Yuan. And other than that, I would say I would recommend at least 2 nights here in YangZhou. It can be done in one day, depending on how you travel. If you're just like dum 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 dum, you see each thing like, you know, YangZhou Family Garden, Pia Street, Yuan, Dongguan Street, Slender Lake, and you've done all these within, like you spent like very short time in all of them. You can get this done in one day, but if you want to enjoy your experience here and take your time and enjoy the places, then I would recommend 2 nights here in YangZhou, especially enough time to be able to try all of the food and experience the free knives. But that's it. I'm not going to keep going on about YangZhou. As we say in China, bye bye.